G'day legends, I hope that you're well. Now you may notice I look different. I had a couple of cocktails yesterday, sang some karaoke, and halfway through the night we decided to cut my hair and trim my beard. And I actually reckon they've done a pretty good job considering some of the stronger cocktails that were in the mix. Now today's news really is there's still street fighting continues in Bakhmut. The UK will double its tanks to Ukraine. Russia uses a new 1.5-ton bomb. Rheinmetall talks about building a new tank factory in Ukraine and defensive works in Crimea. But firstly, before that, let's have a look at the map. And as always here we have Ukraine, capital of Kyiv, Romania, Poland, Belarus and Russia. The red parts being Russia's occupied territory since 2022 and the more maroony dark red being Russia's occupied since 2014. Now someone asked me the other day, what are these other red pieces we will see floating around the map? Now what you should do is come on Deep State map, have a click on it, and then it will tell you when Russia has occupied this. So this area on the side of Finland was occupied in 1940 as a result of Winter War. So it's a little bit of a dig into Russia and the ground they have taken around the world and not handed back. Now, where we're going to be talking about, as always recently, is Bakhmut. But I think it's important to say, because someone said this in a post I saw, that there is fighting in places like Mariinka, Vuhledar and Avdiivka just as heavy as Bakhmut, but it's just not as trending in the media because we don't have this impending encirclement. Now, Bakhmut is an area where we don't know the actual true cost of human life here, but we do know the cost for both sides is massive. And it is easy to forget this, that we look at a map and we look at things move around and whatever, but these are young men and women thrown into this and getting killed in the thousands. It is just crazy. And you'll see numbers thrown around from both sides, but we don't know. And we may never know these true numbers. But what we do know is that it is horrific. And it is, worth keeping in the back of your mind that these are still human beings fighting here, whatever side you're on. Also, the UK Defence Ministry has said within the last 36 hours, 2 key bridges in Bakhmut have been destroyed, including a vital bridge connecting the city to the last main supply route from Bakhmut to the city of Chasiv Yar. Ukraine-held supply routes out of the town are increasingly limited. So the bridges we're talking about is there's one here and one for Kromove, which is this bridge in here. And these were cut. Now, there is some reports that one of them was down from a Russian Iskander missile. What most people are siding with and what seems most plausible is Ukraine downed the bridges to halt the Russian advance. Now, the Kiev Independent also writes, Ukrainian commander Volodymyr Nazenkrio said the situation in Bakhmut, a city in the east of Ukraine, is critical, and that there are more Russian troops surrounding the city than there is ammunition to kill them all. But let's have a look and see what has moved on the map. And if we come here, today is the 5th of March. It is only just updated. Me being very lucky in Australia, these maps update at, about 10 o'clock in the morning my time. So I'm lucky in that way that I can almost be a step ahead of some of the map updates because people might be sleeping. Because the time, in Ukraine at the moment is 3 a.m. and that's across Europe. I'm lucky I get these updates at a good time for me to be filming. So let's see what we saw over the past 24 hours. So we've seen very little movement, although this is just street-to-street fighting in this region. We've seen Russia push right up here and sort of close this off, but as well as their claim control has moved past this waterway where we saw the bridge blown up. So we're not really sure exactly where the Russians are. And we've also seen a little bit of east movement to the east of Berkivka over the past 24 hours, but nothing to write home about. So let's compare this then to the Russian Rybar map and have a look at how these are looking. And in my opinion, at least, and I'm happy to be wrong on anything, these are very similar. Now, there is more ground taken on the Russian map to the east of Berkivka. So if we look at this small water reservoir dam here, as you can see by the big one, this is the big one, the small one, they're saying they're well beyond that. But then the claim control in the deep state is showing very similar. But if we actually look at where these tips are for the encirclement near Kromove and to the southwest of Bakhmut, it's painting a very similar picture, and I think that is important to keep in mind. The live UA map is telling a very similar picture, although it is showing, as we talk about, more of an eastern movement from Yahidni. Now, what distance is this currently? So if we get somewhere here and somewhere here, so we're talking, on 4.5, maybe 4 kilometers. The situation here is definitely getting critical very quickly, not as quickly as we may have thought, but I think we will see a withdrawal, a pullback, and then a huge step forward, because as the withdrawal, Russia can then move a long way. We've also been talking about a lot somewhere in Mariinka, which is down in this region, somewhere we've looked at over the past few videos. We've done some Google mapping around here as well and showed you this small city, large town. And over the past few days, we haven't really seen any movement, but we have had some photographs come out of how this is looking. And as you can see, the city is absolutely just ridden by shells, and I don't think there's a single building really standing in this region anymore. Also, somewhere we need to talk about is Vuhledar, where Russia has been failing to make any ground over the past, that's a couple of weeks. But there are reports that Russia has lost upwards of 150 armoured vehicles. So this area is an incredible hotspot for Russia and Ukraine, and very tactically important. We've spoken to the railroads before from Donetsk into this region, but Russia is not making any ground here and is having large losses. Anyway, as far as other movements on the map, there's not much. There's a little bit near Vodani, as we've seen the past little bit down this road, but other than that, that's about it for the maps today. Now, Prigozhin, who is the leader of Wagner Group, has had some interesting comments on how valuable Wagner is for Russia, with some hints at threats towards authorities if ammo is limited. And I really want to know what you think of this video, and this is translated from War Translated.
Если сейчас ЧВК Вагнер отступит от Бахмута, то весь фронт посыпется. И сегодня ЧВК Вагнер является цементом, как раз, я сказал, с одной стороны, мы стягиваем всю украинскую армию на себя, перемалываем и уничтожаем, не даем возможность сконцентрироваться на других участках фронта. С другой стороны, мы двигаемся вперед, и остальные вынуждены подтягиваться хоть как-то за нами, для того, чтобы сохранять свое лицо, свою репутацию. Плюс они, конечно же, учатся и понимают о том, что это можно делать. Потому что очень важно сломать стереотип, мы можем или не можем. Да, мы можем, значит и вы можете, ребята, вперед. Если ЧВК Вагнер сейчас откатывается, то в истории происходит следующая ситуация.
So people have found it very interesting that he talks about that if Wagner does pull back now, if Wagner goes in retreat, which is funny because, looking at the maps and speaking and listening to Prigozhin speak, talks about, that Bakhmut is pretty much fallen and now surrounded.
ЧВК Вагнер отступила от Бахмута, и в истории останется следующая формулировка. Группа наемников во главе с Пригожиным, она убедила президента Путина в своей необходимости. Нас на самом деле позвали, когда было тяжело, но, будет сказано, убедила. После чего встала на Бахмуте и стала перемалывать, концентрировать на себе украинскую армию. Впоследствии группа наемников не договорилась о деньгах, не знаю, о борзых щенках, о гаремах или еще чем-нибудь, с руководством государства, Министерства обороны, Минфина или Луганской Народной Республики, резко отскочила, и сработал эффект пружины. ЧВК Вагнер отскочила, и напряженная украинская армия слева, справа на флангах, а также по центру ворвалась на территорию ЛНР, смела Луганск, смела Краснодон, вышла на территорию России. Армия вынуждена была пытаться стабилизировать фронт, и посыпались фланги. Дальше пал Крым, я не знаю, много еще всяких катаклизмов. Поэтому сегодня ЧВК Вагнер является цементом. На самой верхушке, то, что стабилизирует в принципе и не дает противнику прорваться. Если мы отойдем, то мы войдем в историю навсегда, как люди, которые сделали основной шаг для проигрыша в войне. И в этом как раз есть проблема как раз с тем самым снарядным голодом. Не мое мнение, кто я такой, чтобы так думать, а вот простые бойцы, те самые, с кривыми руками, с ободранными ногтями, такими лохматыми бородами в разные стороны, не стриженные, от сахи, как говорится, они приходят и говорят: директор, а не могут ли разыгрывать эту историю где-нибудь в глубинах Минобороны, а может и выше, о том, чтобы объяснить всему российскому народу, почему у нас произошли такие неприятности? А вдруг они хотят, чтобы подставить нас и сказать, что это мы негодяи, и поэтому нам не дают боеприпасы, нам не дают вооружения, и нам не дают пополняться личным составом, в том числе из числа заключенных.
Also, defensive works have popped up on beaches said to be in Crimea with this video and also satellite imagery. Now, people are very quick to mock this, but defensive positions like this, especially for an amphibious assault, are very, very effective. But it does show that there is some worry about the possibility of a Ukrainian attack on occupied Crimea.
Смотри, блядь. Хуярят как, блядь. Вот это, блядь. И о каком сезоне в Крыму, блядь, говорить, нахуй. Как курортник попадет на море, если тут, блядь, все вот так вот 200 километров от таких окопах, блядь. Это ж пиздец.
It's also being reported that the UK will give 28 Challenger 2 main battle tanks instead of the earlier promised 14. Ukrainian ambassador to the UK, Vadim Pestykio, says if we were promised 14 tanks, then as a result of President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit, that number will double. So I wouldn't say this is confirmed, but we will see in time. Now, Germany's huge military industrial company, Rheinmetall, is in talks with Ukraine about building a €200 million tank factory in Ukraine. The plant would be able to produce up to 400 newly created KF-51 Panther tanks per year. Rheinmetall chairman Armoured Mobility Vehicle told the Rheinische Post in an interview that air defence systems would ensure the plant's security. The decision we will hear over the next coming weeks. That said, I'd be very, very surprised to see any movement before the end of this conflict, as air defence does not provide 100% security and safety. As we've seen on both sides, lots can get through. But he was quoted as saying that while Western allies are sending enough weapons to Ukraine to defend itself, the embattled country lacks the firepower to return captured territory. And Rheinmetall estimates that Ukraine needs up to 800 tanks to be able to secure a victory over Russia. Now, this is in contrast to Defence Minister Alexei Reznikov claiming that the country needs 300 Western tanks to turn the tide against Russia. Ukraine is currently expecting multiple sets of Western main battle tanks, including German Leopard 2s, British Challenger 2s, and later in the year or next year, American-made Abrams tanks. Now, also, according to Defence Express sources, who they don't name their sources, that Russia has used a new 1,500-kilogram gliding bomb in Ukraine. Now, this bomb was unveiled at the Russian Arms Expo in 2019, believed has been delivered to the Russian Air Force. Now, this munition is intended to engage small-size, semi- and fully hardened ground and surface targets. It weighs 1,500 kilograms, and the guided bomb carries over 1,000-kilogram concrete piercing. The munition can be dropped from an altitude of 15 kilometers and has a range of up to 50 kilometers with an accuracy of said to be 10 meters. Now, that's all I've got for you guys today. Look after yourselves. I hope you're keeping well, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye.